Thanks for joining me on this journey, and welcome to the Journey with Jennie podcast on SM Enlightenment Radio or TV, where we hit all the topics that help and encourage you on this journey of life. Everything from health to mindset to business to finances. Anything that helps you and makes your life better, we cover it all. Welcome, everyone. And I am excited. I have a treat for all of you today because today we are going to have a lot of very practical advice for all of you moms and dads who are prepping the meals and planning the meals for your family, whether it's for your whole family or for just for yourself or for you and your significant other, and just want some help with that and some guidance on that of how to do it well, how to make it simple and easy and healthy. This is the episode for you. And I'm really excited because I am bringing back a guest that we had previously. You already know her, you already love her, and it is Kathy Davis. And if you remember Kathy is a plant-based lifestyle and mindset coach, and she's the CEO of Veg Inspired, and she's the author of 3 cookbooks. Kathy empowers high-achieving professionals to elevate their energy by adopting healthy living habits so they can show up at their optimum performance and achieve their goals, which is exactly what we want. Kathy has been eating and creating vegan meals for more than 7 years. Over the past 2 years, she shifted her daily habits to follow a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. She experienced amazing results, renewed energy, a newfound sense of joy, and a healthier mind and body. Who doesn't want that, right? If you want that, you guys listen up. Kathy's brand, Veg Inspired, is dedicated to providing high-achieving professionals and entrepreneurs with the resources to make a similar transformation. She is eager to guide others on their journey so that they can make a more significant impact in the world. And this is a fun fact. I don't know if you remember this. Of course, you remember this about Kathy, but Kathy and her husband, John, are living their plant-based dream while simultaneously traveling the United States in an RV with their cat. And this is cool. They've been to 26 states so far and 19 national parks, and have a goal to visit all the U.S. national parks. So please help me and welcome Kathy Davis.
Hi, Jennie. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you back. This is so exciting. You are my first guest to have back a second time. So congratulations on that distinguished role award, if you will. Very, very fun. And so actually let's start with the national parks thing. So last time we talked, you haven't added any more since the last time we talked, right?
No, we've been traveling to the same places in the RV that we've already been. And so We're getting ready to head to some new states and new national parks at the end of the summer. But right now we're still at the same number. We're eager to put a new sticker on the RV.
That's awesome.
Don't let me fool you with my big smile.
So speaking of sticker on your RV, so that's so funny you say that. And I was just telling you, so last time we talked, we did add some. I don't have a total number of how many national parks we went to. It's not 19, but we just added a few more. We just went to Zion and Bryce and the Grand Canyon. So that was really, really cool. And at the Grand Canyon, we saw 2 RVs that were both from Argentina. Argentina was their license plate. So I'm not sure. Like, I stop and think, like, I see the Hawaii cars. We saw a Hawaii car at the Grand Canyon, and we're like, how, like, obviously, like, ship, so I guess Argentina, I guess they did the same thing with their RV, and then they're traveling all around, but they had stickers like of all these different national parks and places that they've been to. So I didn't even think of taking a picture of it for you and showing you, like, look, here's the things to aspire to.
Exactly. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So, oh, that's so awesome. All right. So I am excited to really dive into this with all the things to help us. And I think a great place to start is this distinction between meal prep and meal planning. So let's start there. Shed some light on what are the differences.
So my definition of meal prepping is you have recipes, you prep the meal, you put it into containers, and then you eat each of those containers at a different time. So maybe you make, rice and beans and asparagus, and you have 5 of those meals prepped and ready to go, and you just keep eating them on repeat. It also could be you make a big lasagna and then you eat that all week. Like, meal prepping to me is more about prepping the whole meal at once and having it in the fridge ready to heat and eat. Meal planning, which, let me back up. Meal prepping would require some level of planning, right?
Mhm.
But to me, meal planning is really about, what ingredients do I need? What go to meals am I going to make? What recipes am I going to make? How does this recipe fit into my schedule today?
Mhm.
And that's really something that I've started to embrace as the key tip with meal planning, and we'll get much deeper into this. But to me, meal prepping is, you set aside a bunch of hours on one day a week that works, you prep all the meals, and then you
Mhm.
just heat and reheat, or heat and eat, or reheat and eat, or
Right.
however that
Right.
works. Planning allows you to cook things fresh when you have time. It also allows you to plan in foods that you might not cook fresh. Like, you might make a big batch of rice and have a batch of rice available to use for your meals, or you might grill a bunch of vegetables or some other ingredients, maybe make a big batch of black bean burgers or something like that. But it's not, the whole meal's not prepared for a heat and eat experience.
Gotcha. That's a really, really good distinction. So what is your preference?
So my preference is meal planning. And that's my preference because I feel like it doesn't create a barrier, right? We plan everything. You planned your vacation to the
Mhm.
Grand Canyon, Zion and Bryce. You plan when you're going to run your kids around. You know,
Mhm.
we plan everything. You plan when you're going to do certain work tasks. We just plan. You
Mhm.
plan when you're going to watch a TV show with your
Yeah.
best friend. Like, you
Yep.
plan everything. You don't necessarily prep everything. So
Right.
with planning, at least you can create the intention of the foods you want to eat, so you're not caught at that in the moment decision phase and end up ordering takeout because it's convenient. And
Mhm.
so planning really allows you to set the intention. And I always tell people, like, one of the biggest things that I think is really important in this distinction is, I find a lot of people will say something like, I can't meal prep. I don't have 4 hours on Sunday. So I'm never going to win. And I'm
Mhm.
always like, well, let's set it up for a win. Let's see how we can plan foods and meals into your life, not in addition to what you're, in addition to what you're
Right.
doing, but how they fit into your life versus this random thing called dinner that gets a last minute, we don't give any thought until 6
Right.
p.m. and everybody's whining at the
Mhm.
kitchen island hungry.
And that, I think, would be, like, the 3rd category. So you have the meal prepping, the meal planning, but then the do nothing. And then
The
you
f-
just end up, like, scattered.
yeah, like that fly by the seat of your pants.
Yeah.
And I teach clients how to eat more plants. That's what I do. And I teach a variety of different variations of meal planning because it doesn't have to be size fits all. You can have based on your life situation, your plan might look different than mine. I mean, I travel in an RV. Things are different for me. I don't have, you know, freezer storage to freeze thousands of soups, and I don't have all of that. So planning might look a little different for each person, and that's really where you can take some of these key elements we're going to talk about today and really put them to use.
And I think that's such a really good point, because what you talked about is, because for me, I'm definitely a meal planner, and I agree, the whole thought of meal prepping overwhelms me. Like, I hear people do, and I know it can be so beneficial, and if that's what people choose, then that's great, and I've always kind of thought and tried to aspire to that in my mind, but then it just never actually happens. But for me, meal planning is a must, and because I have lived on the other side where it's just like, I don't like the stress that comes at 4 o'clock when it's getting to the point where like, what are we going to have for dinner? We got to eat something. And I have no idea. What do I have in the house? And that to me, it got from me to the point that that was so stressful that I'm like, it was worth it for me to sit down and just plan, however long, however many weeks or whatever worth for me that works, to plan those. Because then, like you said, and maybe this is, stuff you want to get into, but for me, what I do is I sit down and look at my schedule. I'm like, okay, I need a crock pot meal that night. I have no time to cook dinner that night. Everyone's eating at all different times that night. And so I need to find meals that fit into, like, that's how I do it. Like what our schedule is how I I pick the meals that we do. So how do you recommend when you work with your clients?
So the schedule is the first thing we look at. We plan meals based on your calendar. So everybody's week might be different. Everybody's day might be different. When I was a school teacher, I knew that Tuesday nights I always got home from work late. We had staff meetings. I wanted to make sure that the classroom was ready the next day. Like you just stay at school a little bit longer. So Tuesdays, I a lot of times we would just go out. Well, that's not budget friendly. That's
Right.
not necessarily waistline friendly either. And that's not to say that you can't intend to eat out or intend to get takeout and create an intention around it. But if it's a fly by the seat of your pants because you don't feel like cooking, and then the next thing you know, you've ordered takeout 3 times in a week, and you're like, I need to save money, but I'm going to order takeout because I don't want to cook, you start to your priorities are
Mhm.
get kind of goofy. And I was in the same boat as you. When the phone or the text message would go off, "What's for dinner?" I would start to lose my mind. I was like,
Yes.
this just isn't an acceptable conversation anymore. And it could be hours. We could get home from work. We could have been texting for half an hour. "What's for dinner?" "I don't know." "What do you want?" "I don't know." "What do you want?" "What do you have?" "Oh, we've got zucchini," because it's zucchini season right now. So
We
we
just
have
had zucchini tonight for dinner.
right? We have
Yes.
zucchini. There's always seems to be zucchini in the spring, in the early
Yes.
summer. And you're like, "Well, we have zucchini, but I don't wanna make zucchini. I don't wanna deal with it." "Well, let's just go
Mhm.
out and we'll deal with the zucchini later." And the next thing you know, that's happened 3 nights in a row, and your
Yeah.
zucchini's mushy in your fridge. And so,
Mhm.
meal planning isn't just about creating order, it's also about creating a budget. It's about creating dis you know, organization with the foods that you
Mhm.
have and eliminating a lot of that stress and overwhelm that can happen in the kitchen.
Mhm.
So, I always tell my clients to start with their schedule. What are those days of the week that you need a crock pot meal or you need a reheat meal, or maybe you do want takeout that day? What's the intention? And then the next thing I look at, which might sound weird, but I always look at the weather, because there's nothing worse than
Ah.
planning a grilled meal and then having it
Huh.
rain all day.
I've had that happen multiple times, and I never look at the weather when I'm planning, so that's so interesting. So interesting.
I also really like a warm, cozy meal on days that it's not so warm and cozy. And so
Mhm.
the planning using the weather app or just looking at the weather for the week
Yeah.
allows me to really create some intention around the food. And what I've found is when you meal plan meals that excite you, meals that align with these types of random situations. It's a beautiful sunny day and you want to grill out. It's a
Mhm.
cold day and you want chili. When you plan meals like that, you are excited to make them.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, it's chili night. I'm so excited." Or, "Oh my gosh, we're having tacos." I can't tell you how many times I would get home late and I would still make the taco meal because I love tacos. It didn't matter what time of day or what time of evening I was cooking. I was like, "It's taco night. We're making tacos." But if I didn't have tacos planned, I probably would have just gone out to eat because I would have
Right.
been like, I don't know. What am I gonna have? I don't know. We'll just have taco. We'll just go out to eat."
And I think that is really, really good because I think that goes to the comment or the protest that some people might give is like, well, because I've heard this from my friends because I talk about the meal planning that I do, and they'll say, well, but I like to like have what how do I know what I'm in the mood for that night, And so that's something that people will say. And I think what you just said is a great response to that because if you are planning things that you're excited to have, that you're already but maybe that's still not good enough. So is that like what you would say to people that would say to that, or do you have more that you would use to address that issue?
Absolutely. So one thing is I plan based on schedule, then I plan based on the weather, then I pick meals that align with my goals and
Mhm,
excite me. They have to be meals that do both,
mhm,
right? So I'm a high carb, low fat vegan, so my meals are starch, veg, beans, fruits, herbs, all of that, whole grains, and so my meals align with that. And then they have to be exciting. So yeah, we might have tacos once a week. They might be a different recipe of a
mhm,
taco, but I'm still excited about tacos. And then that's one variation. Another variation might just be a list of 5, you need to have 5 dinners that you're cooking this week. You know that certain days require certain dinners. The other ones might be
mhm,
flexible. You might be like, "Oh, today we could have chili or we could have tacos or we could have black bean burgers or we could have tacos." Like it allows you to have some variation. And then I mean, I could talk about meal planning for hours. In that planning, you hear me talk about tacos and burgers. Well, what toppings do you put on those things? You
mm,
put lettuce, tomatoes, maybe you use an onion, maybe you use olives or pickles. So you start to look at how different 2 different meals could have similar
mm,
toppings, and now you're piggybacking ingredients. So you're
mm.
not having to buy cabbage and all these other ingredients. You're buying the similar ingredients that you can use across multiple meals. And that can save you money budget-wise. It can save you from wasting food because you don't have
Mhm.
half of a head of something going bad in the fridge. I mean, it
Right.
really kind of takes that overwhelm and stress out of the different foods that we might waste, or, things not being used up.
I love that you said that because that's so funny because that's exactly what we did. We had a little span of time here between trips and stuff. It's like, okay, I know I need 8 meals. And so I told my kids, I'm like, all right, you pick the 8 meals, like I'll get the ingredients. And then that's what we did. And then I'm just like, it's summertime. I don't have to be as hyper scheduled as I do have to be during the school year. And so like that's what we did. We had all the ingredients for all of those meals. And that was just kind of like, well, which night and then tonight, zucchini was not planned at all, but that came out of the garden. And we're like, oh, well, that's what we're having tonight. So it is nice to be able to do both. I like being able to have that flexibility when it doesn't matter as much in our schedule, but then have it be super scheduled. But the point is that you have what you need and you are eliminating that stress, but you're also giving everything that you need to have a healthy meal, because that's the thing that was just so interesting to me when people are just like, ah, we just ended up going out tonight. I didn't feel like making anything and I didn't know what we were going to have. And that's just, I don't know, that seems a little bit crazy to me. But also, it's not really an option in our family just because of being gluten free. Like, it's just that puts a cap on how many places you can even go. And I don't know if you experience that with being vegan, if that um, is as limiting to where you could go out anyway.
Well, for us, we found some vegan restaurants, and I
Huh?
would say that the we had the opposite problem. Because
Um,
we found vegan restaurants that we loved, we could be known without a plan to eat out 3 or 4 times and not think twice about it.
Yeah.
And, whether it's just we were fortunate enough to be able to afford that, or it was just, poor budget planning, right? Poor
Mhm.
poor financial planning. Um,
That's a
it
whole nother episode.
we won't we won't go there. But really, like, if you think about it, like, from a budget standpoint, I don't need to be eating out 4 times. And honestly, that was when we first hit the road in the RV. And even before that, when we lived in Pittsburgh, we had restaurants we loved, and we would get home from work and be like, "I don't want to cook. I don't want to cook either. Okay, we'll just go out."
Yeah.
But when we plan in meals that excite us, and that doesn't happen as often because we really create the intention. And with
Mhm.
us, we changed the way that we eat. Like, we were junk food vegans who've now adopted a whole food plant-based way of eating. There are less options to eat out. And so when we eat out, we're very intentional about it, and
Mhm.
really we look for the places that are going to be worth it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not worth it to me to get just any old takeout. Like, I want to make sure if I'm going to eat something that doesn't align with my whole food plant-based living goals, it better be dang worth it. It better be the
Yep.
best food that I've had. And for me, that's really made a huge difference and a huge impact in my happiness, my energy levels, like everything in that whole lifestyle change has really changed my life, like being able to hike at these national parks. I've lost almost 50 pounds. Like there's a
Congratulations.
lot around that. Thank
Yeah.
you. But that's all a result of being intentional.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm so passionate about meal planning, because it allows you to create that intention.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what your goals are, whether you've got, as much money in the world as you want, or you want to lose weight, or you want to take control of your health, or if you're just a healthy person who wants to eat with intention without stress. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter which end of the spectrum you're coming from. Being able to have a plan and an agenda and some order at dinner time, especially,
Mhm.
can make for a much happier household,
Yeah.
because you know what you're cooking. You can delegate if you're running late. You can say, can you guys chop the peppers and onions? Or can you wash the lettuce? Or can you put rice on? Like
Mhm.
something as simple as that. And if you do plan to delegate, just have a cheat sheet of how to make some of those go to things. So, like for us, we
Mm.
use brown rice. And so, if you have on the inside of a cupboard, this is how to make, this is how much
That's
brown
smart.
rice, this is how to do it. It takes the guesswork out for other people. And I did want to come back before we break for the middle. I wanted
Yeah.
to come back on your zucchini comment. So
Yes.
you had said zucchini wasn't planned in, but it came out of the garden. And so, gosh, what a fortunate way to live, is to be able to go out to your garden and pick fresh vegetables and
Yes.
be able to incorporate them in. So if that's you and you're listening and you're like, I love incorporating fresh vegetables, but I get stuck when there's too many. We have a bountiful
Mhm.
harvest and I'm not sure what to do. Start to plan in those options. If we have a lot of zucchini, I'm going to grab an extra box of pasta. If we have a lot of
Mm.
tomatoes, I'm going to grab some basil and make a tomato sauce. If we have a lot of, maybe it's you're overflowing with salad greens or baby spinach or something
That
like that.
too. We had tons of romaine.
Yeah, exactly. So what else can you do? Can you do a fun recipe where you grill it? Can you make different lettuces? Can you make tacos because you can shred it up? Can you make sandwiches where you shred up the lettuce and make like hoagies or something?
Mhm.
So start to look at ways that you can use those in different manners with ingredients that you can have on hand. So
Yes.
for us, because we go to farmers markets, a lot of times we'll have rice and potatoes here. And then if we buy vegetables, we'll do like grilled veggies and pasta, or grilled
Mhm.
veggies and rice, or grilled veggie salads, or we'll do like a black bean burger and maybe a pasta salad, with grilled vegetables instead of a hot pasta dish. Just depends. We
Yeah.
just try to have those on-hand ingredients to be flexible with those garden harvests.
Yeah. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's awesome. So, so good. Do you have I know we only have just a couple minutes, and so I know you wanted to get that in. Is there anything else with meal planning, that we want to I'm sure there's more. Like, we could continue with this. We don't have to wrap this part up, in this, but, we can definitely go into the next segment. But is there anything else, like, with that whole process, just the thinking of so you look at the like the calendar, the weather, what your goals are, and then the meals that excite you. So is that a good synopsis of that? What else is there in the meal planning?
Definitely. So the next thing I always look at is, what do I have on hand? So if you have a garden, you might say, okay, we're going to have a round of zucchini. We better make sure we plan for that. Or, what do I have that's still in the fridge from last week that I need to use?
Mhm.
You might have a bag of carrots. Can you do carrot dogs, or just something different with them that you might not have thought about? And
Carrot dogs?
we can talk about
Okay.
carrot dogs.
Okay.
Remind me.
I yes. Okay, I think that might be a good place to stop and leave everyone hanging, because I'm so curious what carrot dogs are. Like, you need to come back after the break to find out what carrot dogs are. So we are going to continue with meal planning, and then we're going to get into carrot dogs and lots of recipe ideas and specific things. Kathy was dropping a ton of ideas through there, but we're going to get even more detail onto specific meals and specific things that we can do. So we will be right back. Thank you for listening to Journey with Jenny on SM Enlightenment Radio and TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Journey with Jenny on SM Enlightenment Radio or TV and anywhere that you listen to podcasts. I'm Jenny and I'm here with Kathy Davis from Veg Inspired. And we have just been talking all about meal planning. So if you missed the beginning of the episode, go back and listen to that because it's a lot of good, juicy tips. And we left you hanging with carrot dogs. So I'm so curious. Please do tell. What are carrot dogs?
So, I was a huge skeptic, but carrot dogs are carrots that peel, full-size carrots that you peel, and you kind of peel the edges so they look a little rounded, and then you either parboil them or steam them and then marinate them in a sauce, or you can simmer them for a good, 60 to 75 minutes in spices. Typically soy sauce, Worcestershire, vegan Worcestershire, liquid smoke, some spicy mustard, and then different paprika, onion powder, all of that. And you eat them in a hot dog bun topped with all your favorite hot dog toppings, and voila, you have a carrot dog. Now, here's the
Really?
thing. I was like, there is no way a carrot's going to taste like a hot dog. And I was wrong. It is so
Wow.
nostalgic with like onions and ketchup and mustard or relish. Oh my gosh, they're so good. I love them.
I am I'm a little bit blown away. Like, I am gonna need the exact recipe, and I'm gonna do this, and we'll be making comments on Instagram. We'll go there and, like, post pictures and talk about it. Everyone can share what their experience is. Wow! So, to make it actually taste like a hot dog, is it the specific spices that you end up using? Okay.
It's the spices, and people will say, well, it doesn't exactly taste like a hot dog. But
Well,
listen,
yeah.
when you put it in a bun and load it with all the toppings, it is nostalgic of a hot dog. I mean, it doesn't have like, if you like
Wow.
those ones with the skin, like it doesn't have that. But gosh, it's just incredible that the things you can do with plants and spices and in different mixtures to get things that aren't animal products to taste
Yeah.
more like a what you're used to.
And any way you slice it is gonna be way healthier than a hot dog anyway, because hot dogs are just mystery meat. Like, I don't know if you can really call it meat anyway, so, like, I don't really know what's in them, so hands down, it's gonna be better.
Absolutely. And before we get the people in the comments saying, "Well, why do vegans always want their meat to taste like meat?" I did not give up animal products because I didn't like the way it tasted. I gave up animal products because of my health.
Mm,
So, I just want to always say that because I didn't quit animal products because I didn't like them. I stopped eating them because it was not giving me what I needed to be healthy.
yeah, that's a really good distinction. Really, really good. Okay, so back to the meal planning because I feel like we're not done. We haven't rounded out the whole meal planning. So let's pick up where we left off then. So I got sidetracked with the whole carrot dog thing.
Yes. So we were saying that like looking at the foods you have in your fridge, which hence how we came up with carrot dogs,
Mhm.
and really looking at what you need to use up. If you've got a bag of frozen broccoli that you're like, God, I really need to get that out of my freezer. Like I really need to just start moving some food. How can I use the frozen broccoli? Maybe you make a stir fry. Maybe you air fry it. Maybe you thaw it and steam it and drizzle on some balsamic vinegar and some mustard powder. I don't know, but think about different ways that you can use the foods that you have on hand so that you aren't always having to go buy a bunch of ingredients and you aren't wasting food. And then that's the next step of your meal plan. And then you take your meal plan and you've looked at all the recipes, those go-to meals that you want to make, and you start to translate into a grocery list. And I always tell my clients, like, be flexible with yourself. If a recipe calls for, you know, a white onion and they only have a red onion, it's okay to buy the red onion. If it calls for, you know, green apples and they only have red, like be flexible with yourself as you're navigating this space. And it may be that it's not as hard to eat more plants as we've made it out to be when we start to
Mm.
plan and we start to look at ways that we can incorporate those foods into our everyday meals.
I think that is a really, really good point, especially for people like me who are more A type and like I love a recipe and I will follow the recipe and I'm good at following recipes. Give me a recipe and I'm good. And so and I can very easily get hung up on but I need, this specific thing. And especially when it's a new recipe and you don't know how much that one ingredient is that like the linchpin, is that the key thing of it? Does it matter? So I think that's a really, really excellent point of just give yourself grace, especially when you're trying new things. You have so many different things going on. And if you're just like, okay, we're just going to try it. It's new and we're just going to make do with what we have and just see it as an adventure as opposed to getting hung up on all the details. I think that's a really good point for people like me.
Absolutely. And to really kind of lean in a little bit to this point specifically, when we first went from junk food vegans to this whole food plant-based, I remember sitting down at this very desk with every plant-based cookbook I had, and I had 21 recipes that I was going to make. 21. That's insane. Nobody needs to have 21 recipes that they are going to make. You don't need that many.
Yeah.
So give yourself some flexibility. Maybe you only try one new to you recipe in a week.
Mhm.
Maybe you really say, okay, this week I'm going to do one new recipe and the other 4 dinners are going to be ones that everybody already likes.
Mhm.
Or I'm going to do the same breakfast and lunch all week and then 5 different dinners. And really tapping into familiar foods, things that your family likes, things that they know how to eat, things that you know how to cook so that you're
Mhm.
not adding additional overwhelm while you're sitting here trying to meal plan. The other tip I have is when you are looking at a cookbook, if there's specific foods you need to use or specific recipes, you're trying to do breakfast on, brunch recipes, or you're trying to do soup recipe because it's going to be a cold day. Don't start at the beginning of the cookbook and try and go through it all and get distracted 5 times, and now you've spent an hour and you're only on page 5 because you got distracted by the front. Go right to the back, go right to the brunch section, go right to the soup section, look through those, get some inspiration, pull out those meals. You can set aside time another day to get inspiration from a cookbook, but when you're in that meal planning mode, really focus on, I want a soup, I'm going to go to the soup section. And if you do have time to be flipping through a cookbook another time of the day, put little sticky notes on it. I
Mhm.
want to try this soup. I want to try this. And then let that be where you go first. And take that page by page, perusing the cookbook out of your meal planning time and be really intentional with that time that you have set aside to meal plan.
That was golden. If y'all missed that, if you were multitasking, if you weren't kind of totally paying attention, go rewind and re-listen to that because that was gold. Yeah, 100% agree. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm a 3-time cookbook author. I love to peruse some cookbooks, but
I do
it's
too.
not the
I get
time
so
to be
lost.
doing it
Yes.
during meal planning time.
Because it adds to the overwhelm, and I think that's such a good thing, and I feel like that's come up several times in this conversation. I think it's so important, and I really hope people listen to that because it is something new, and we're trying to reduce the overwhelm and increase the chance of success. And so, how do we do that? We pay attention to these things along the way to really stay laser focused on what you want to do. Because I know when I sit down to meal plan, it can be overwhelming, especially the first time that you do it and you have all these things and you're trying to figure things out. And and if you do start getting carried away and looking at a whole bunch of recipes, it can just the distraction just takes you away. So I think that is absolutely golden to really stay focused and keep at the task at hand so that you can just get that done, make your list, and then be able to get to the store.
And that's something I caution people about with buying meal plans from other people. Like, I
Mm.
have meal plans that I gift out. I know if you've listened to my first episode, you can get our free meal plan at veginspired.com/podcast. I gift those out. But and I put together a plan, but my intention is for you to say, oh, this would fit better on Thursday for me
Mm,
than on Monday, or this would fit better on the second day of my week. I don't know what day of the, you might plan Monday to Saturday or Monday to
mhm,
Sunday, depending on
mhm.
when I get groceries. If I get groceries on a Wednesday night, I plan Thursday till the next
Mhm.
time I get groceries. Like,
Right.
I don't, with our travel schedule, we don't always get groceries as traditional times as everybody else
Mhm.
does. And it also might depend on when the farmers market is in your area. Like, you might,
Right.
or when you're harvesting your garden, or when your CSA box comes. So it really is important for you to, you know, take any recipe that you get and really fit it into your schedule and your life, and really really look at how it fits in. Like the
Mhm.
carrot dogs, you could do the one that marinates for 6 to 24 hours, or you could do the one that cooks for 45 to 60 minutes. It really depends on what block of time you have.
Which quick question about that. So marinating for that long, like, would you do it in a crock pot? Is that what you would cook it in or over the stove?
So the recipe on veginspired.com is you steam the carrots and then you marinate them overnight, and then
Oh,
you
okay, this is
reheat
okay.
them the next day. The recipe in
Ah.
the budget friendly cookbook is you just throw them in. We do it in well, I think I did it in my Dutch oven the last time because the carrots were
Mm.
longer. So they have to have enough room to lay in the sauce,
Mhm.
and then you just cook it down in the sauce, and it cooks low and slow is what I always say. Like, it just, so
Okay,
you probably could do it in a crock pot, but you would want the liquid to get out because you want the liquid to reduce while you're cooking it so that it kind of
gotcha.
coats the carrot. The cool thing about the marinated ones is you can throw them on a grill or over a campfire to
Oh.
reheat them. So then they get like those little grill lines and they become cool.
I think this is a hoot. This is amazing. Oh, best thing ever. Oh my gosh. Okay, so what else with meal planning before we get into more recipes because that's an amazing one. So, what else are some key points with meal planning?
So a couple of things that I've really started to do is I set a timer and I only let myself spend so much time meal
Mm,
planning, and I do that more because I am the type of person who gets sucked into the
mhm.
cookbooks and sucked into the recipes. And I'm type A. I'm kind of want everything to be perfect. I want the
What?
grocery list to be written in the order of the store, and I don't even,
Yes.
we go to a different store every couple of weeks. I don't even know how the store is going to be. Like, when I walk into the store and the first thing I walk into isn't the produce section, I'm going to lose my mind, right? So,
Like, who designs their store but not like that? Like, everyone designs their store that way.
I don't know. Every now and then we get a backwards store where you're like, wait a minute, the produce is supposed to be to the right. What are they doing to me? Um,
Exactly.
but I think, with anything, it's about giving yourself grace, giving yourself time to really embrace it. Maybe you only plan 3 days. Maybe you only plan breakfasts for a week. Maybe you only plan lunches for a week and you still do the fly by the seat of your pants for dinner.
Mm,
And you start to see where those crunch points are. And those crunch points are the ones you want to plan first. So if you know that every day, or every Wednesday, it's a, chaos in the kitchen,
mhm,
plan for Wednesdays and then look at your next crunch point. If Saturday mornings are crazy because everybody's at home and they all want something different and you feel like a short order cook, maybe you create some kind of themed breakfast for Saturday mornings. Maybe it's always waffles or always pancakes, or maybe it's like cereal once a month so that everybody picks their own cereal and that's just how it goes. And really thinking about ways that you can change it up. You might even do like one variation of meal planning I teach is routines, and each each day you have a different category of a type of meal. So maybe it's
mm,
meatless meals on Monday, tacos on Tuesday, wraps or bowls or soups or something on Wednesday, and then I always say, I don't know, Thursday. I'm trying to think of something else, but I lost my fun alliteration with Thursday. So, um, but Fun
mm,
Friday is always one that I use, and some ideas for that might be breakfast for dinner. It might be appetizers for dinner where you do like buffalo
mhm,
cauliflower, you do mini versions of these carrot dogs and just do like little carrot dogs that you can dip in mustard. You might do slider burgers, just thinking about different ways that you can make meals fun. And maybe it's make your own pizza on Fun Friday. And that allows the whole family to be involved too. And then you're only looking for 4 of those
Mhm.
category meals each month. So if you have Taco Tuesday, you need 4 taco recipes and your Tuesdays are now planned for the month.
That's beautiful.
Done. Minutes. Like it takes minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I think that is brilliant because I would get into no, well, not a rut because, like, just, like, the overwhelm's like, "Oh, I need all these different meals," and then we have the meals that we normally have, but when you have a category like that, it gives enough structure, but then it can also, like you said, like, you can have different kinds of tacos and different things, or you have kids like me who are just like, like I have, and just like, "Oh, no, 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 tacos is this." Like, we don't mess with it, but, like, well, sometimes we do. So, but it doesn't and I do think, having it's funny we say planning breakfast and planning lunch, like, I do not personally, I don't plan breakfast and lunch, I'm like, I plan dinners, like, you're on your own for the other 2 meals, but I will say for the weekends, though, it does make it easier because typically we will do pancakes or waffles on a Saturday and then muffins on a Sun muffins and fruit on a Sunday, so that's just kind of it's not a hard and fast rule, it just kinda depends, sometimes we do eggs and toast, but it does make it easier kind of when you have those routines, when you find things that everyone in the family likes, it does make it a lot easier and a lot less stressful.
and it's fun, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't know. I maybe because I am so type A and I just love the organization of it. But I love to wake up in the morning and be like, "Ooh, it's tofu scramble day." Like, yes.
Yes.
Like it's just fun. Or when we're gonna grill out or do breakfast sandwiches. Like when we like because we are in campgrounds and people
Mhm.
around us are doing the campground thing, right? They're
Yeah.
outside cooking their breakfast. And so it's fun to kind of camp on the
Mhm.
weekends. And so we have to
Yeah.
plan that in because otherwise, I mean, it's our house. So
Mhm.
sometimes we don't go out and hang out
Right.
outside. It's very strange.
Exactly. That's right. Well, and I love that too of just thinking of other, like, fun recipes, like, you talked about that in the beginning, just being excited about what you're eating, and then once you have this mixture of recipes that the family likes and that you all like, and then venture it out and like, "Okay, just try another one and add in another one," and then throw that into the mix because at some point you're like, "Okay, these are getting kinda boring, like, we're doing a lot of the similar things, so, let's venture out and find another one." So just establishing that routine and then being able to add things in as you go along.
Absolutely. And the beauty of it is it does create the variety and it allows you to try different things. Like
Mhm.
I never thought a taco was anything but ground beef. But now I eat veggie tacos, cauliflower tacos, tofu tacos, mushroom tacos, bean tacos. Like it's just so many options. And so it's kind of fun to have all of that variety and it just I don't know, it just makes it more exciting. And you can
Yeah,
still rotate in your favorite taco recipe. You don't have to do it. You don't have to have 4, you could have 2 and just rotate them every other
right.
week. Or you could have tacos twice. I'm all for that too.
Exactly. Well, and I will say for those that have kiddos, um, at whatever point that you're comfortable with doing it, incorporating them into the meal planning and the decisions there too, because it might just be easier for you to just kind of figure things out in the beginning, but then once you have several different meals that you're doing and just be like, okay, what do you guys feel like having? And so that way they have buy-in and they are excited about those things and they're going to be looking forward to the meals too. And then there's not that tug of war that I hear from so many parents. But just you get their buy-in first, and then you can even have them help make it, and that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And that's what and same thing with your partner or spouse. Like
Mhm.
if you're trying to get them to eat different foods, make sure that you plan that ahead so that
Yeah,
they can be excited about the meals too. And it just goes back to that excitement. Like everybody's always excited when they get to go out to dinner. So if you plan meals that excite you, then you
yeah.
don't feel like you have to go out to dinner.
Mhm. Exactly. I love it. Wow. So, okay. So we're getting, oh, we only have a few minutes left. So I definitely want, so if there's anything else with meal planning to tie a little bow on it, because we've done a really, really thorough job. This has been fabulous. And then I want you to share about your course or what you have coming up.
Absolutely. So if I can leave you with one thing about meal planning that really kind of ties this all in a bow is allow meal planning to be a fun activity for you that creates order and intention. It doesn't have to be a chore. It doesn't have to be this big, cumbersome process. It can simply be a pencil and your calendar and just sketching it out, just like you would if you were planning a vacation. And, really embrace it as something that you can try. And if you don't love it, it doesn't work for you after stop trying it for several times, because you can't try it just once. You got to try it
Right.
a few weeks to really create some change. Then fine. You can find an alternative, but to me, it really helps to create order and takes that guesswork out at that pinnacle time of the day when everybody needs you. Everybody
Mhm.
needs you because you're the meal preparer. If you've taken that stress off of yourself and now you just have that next step ready to go, that's if I can leave you with one piece is just give it a try.
I love it. I totally agree. Absolutely. Thank you for all of those tips because I know it has really made a big difference in my life. And honestly, the time that I started doing this was during COVID when it's just like, oh, didn't grocery shop hardly at all. And so like I did a monster plan and then I've taken it back from there. But it's just it takes some time. But then once that's done and the shopping is done and you have those things that you need for the meals in the house, it just takes so much stress off. So I highly recommend it too. And thank you for sharing all of these tips because I know this is going to be so, so, so helpful to so many people. So thank you, Kathy. And share with us how people can get more tips and help from you.
Absolutely. So we actually have a workshop coming up. It's a 3-day Eat More Plants workshop, and you can register at veginspired.com/3-day workshop. Very unique URL. Easy to
Perfect.
remember.
Yes.
3-day workshop, veginspired.com, 3-day workshop. But we're going to be really taking you through the systems, the habits, the tips to eat more plants. How can you add more plants to your everyday meals and really start to leverage the power of those? I always call them superfoods, but I don't mean like superfoods. I mean like foods that are super for you. Really start to use that to help meet your personal and professional goals because studies show that five or more servings of vegetables can increase our productivity up to 25%. So eating more plants can make you more productive. And that's really a win-win for anybody that's just trying to get through life, right?
Yes, that's awesome. I highly recommend all of you definitely do the 3-day workshop with Kathy. That sounds absolutely amazing. And I mean, productivity, like who doesn't want more productivity? Who doesn't want to feel better, be more productive? So that's amazing. And also share with us, you have a couple cookbooks, right? And I think we have a picture we can put up for those of you who are watching. Can you just share very quickly about your cookbooks?
Absolutely. So I have 3 cookbooks, the 30-minute whole food plant-based cookbook, which is pretty traditional. It goes through all of the different categories of recipes. Then my second cookbook, because sometimes you'll hear me refer to them as first, second, and third, was the super easy plant-based cookbook. And that one's super fun because it's laid out more in one pot. It's laid out more in categories of cooking. So we have one pot recipes, 5 ingredient recipes, more different 30-minute meals and some no cook meals. And then the last one, budget friendly plant based diet cookbook, which you can't go wrong with eating on a budget and eating more plants. That one also comes with 3 meal plans in it. So it really kind of walks you through, which ties in perfectly to what we're talking about today. And, one of the big things I want to leave you with when you're looking at like I said earlier, when you're looking at cookbooks and really using those to do your meal plan, read the recipe, make sure that it doesn't require marinating for 6 to 24 hours. Like really stop and say, "Okay, this sounds amazing. I want this. Let me skim through this recipe, make sure I do have time for it, and then let me plug it into the day that works best for me."
Awesome. Amazing. Well, thank you, Kathy, so much. This has been a blast. I have learned so much from you, and I know this is going to be so beneficial to everyone that listens. So, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jenny, and thanks for listening, everybody.
That's a wrap. Thanks so much for joining me on SM Enlightenment Radio or TV, or joining us on the Journey with Jennie podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please download my podcast and leave a 5-star rating and review. It really does help, and I would be so grateful. I'm Jennie. Have a good one.